evening.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 15th Select Board meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll go right into announcements. Do either of you, Ed, do you have any announcements?
No, I don't.
I'm going to hold off and not do announcements because we're going to talk about the 350th, and that would be, what I would say. I guess I would just wish everybody a happy holidays.
Yep.
We won't be having another meeting until after the holidays, so I want to just say happy holidays and happy new year to everybody. I hope everybody enjoys Luminarium this year, and I just want to give a big thank you to all of our town employees for what they've done this year. It's been a remarkable year. They've had to step up and work under really unusual circumstances, and yet they were able to do that and still provide excellent service to our residents. And so a really big and heartfelt thank you to all of our town employees and other elected officials and other appointed officials, because everybody really had to adjust how they were doing business, and we appreciate that.
I had nothing, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I am going to read our public forum policy. Public participation at the Hatfield Select Board welcomes everyone to its meetings and all other public meetings of the town of Hatfield. All regular and special meetings of the boards and committees of the town of Hatfield shall be open to the public and shall conform to the open meeting law. Executive sessions are closed to the public and will be held only as prescribed by the statutes of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is important to recognize that the open meeting law affords the opportunity to listen to the proceedings, but not necessarily participate. During meetings of the Select Board, an attempt will be made to find a balance between hearing from members of the community and conducting the required business of the Hatfield Select Board. So I just want to say for people who might be watching this at a later broadcast, I'm under the impression we have a number of people joining us online tonight.
Yes, we do.
And so we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that, and we'll do our best to include those folks as appropriate throughout the meeting. So we have to do the approval of some minutes.
You can do public forum first.
Oh, all right, so you're right. Well, let's do public forum before we get into the minutes. Is anyone here for public forum? Kathy?
Go to a mic or something? Or?
Sure, I mean, you appear later on the agenda.
I know.
Okay.
I'll be quick. My name is Kathy Gow, and I'm here representing the Hatfield Historical Society and also as the curator of the Hatfield Historical Museum. And this is, we are looking forward to speaking during the agenda item that covers the Historical Museum use of the third floor of the Town Hall, where the Historical Museum has been storing its collection for the last 10 years. And we have several people that are in the audience here today for that topic, and also I think we have 8 or 9 folks or more who are on the call virtually who are interested in that topic as well. Thank you.
Great. Should we open public forum to the folks on, is there anyone there? They can see me.
They can see you.
Is there anyone who's joining us tonight remotely that would like to say anything briefly during public forum? Okay. Well, then we will now move on to the approval of minutes.
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of June 11th, 2020 and of January 21st, 2020.
I'll second that.
The motion made in second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Our first agenda item for this evening has actually been postponed, so we'll skip right over that. We were going to have a discussion with Bobby Betzold about the 350th fireworks. Is he on?
Bobby
there?
is. Okay. Bobby is, and he's ready to speak.
So
Hey,
Bobby, we'll go ahead and turn that over to you.
Okay. You able to hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
All right, perfect. Good evening, everyone. I know we were on a couple weeks ago as far as Luminarium and the plans for that, and just wanted to give an update and kind of the final details for everyone. We've been posting a lot on our website and on Facebook, so I'm just going to briefly run through the plans for the evening. I'm actually going to start before that, though, and just remind everyone the post office, the School Street Post Office, will be doing a commemorative postmark and cancellation stamp starting this Thursday. It'll run Thursday, Friday, and Saturday during their normal business hours. And additionally, on Saturday, they're going to be doing special hours from 1 to 3 p.m. As well, where if anyone wants to either mail anything or just go with a document and receive the stamp, there's no charge. You just request it. So it's kind of a nice, cool thing and unique thing. It actually is available. You can send in from all over the country if they want to. So just kind of a nice, unique way to commemorate both the 350th and specifically the Luminarium this weekend. So that would be the first thing just to remind everyone of. As far as Saturday and the plans for Luminarium, again, reminding that we're not doing any in-person activities this year due to COVID and the restrictions. So we've kind of changed the program in that regard, but we're really trying to encourage everyone to participate by, as we're saying, light up the night. So we want as many people as possible to participate, get out, get your luminary bags out, and all of that. We are going to, I'll announce tonight, we are going to have a special visit from Santa in the afternoon, and we'll be posting online hopefully tomorrow or Thursday that we will be bringing Santa around town, and we'll post the route, but it will be starting at approximately 2 o'clock, and he'll make his way around town for everyone to see since he can't visit us on the front steps of Town Hall. So we're very pleased to have that as well.
So like a parade kind of thing, just for Santa, but like a parade sort of thing to move through town.
Yes.
But just
it'll be
with Santa,
very
yeah.
similar to that.
Yeah.
And we'll post the route so that people have an idea of about what time he'll be coming through. For the evening's festivities, 5 p.m. is when we're encouraging people to have your luminaries lit and out, so right around dark. So that'll kind of be the kickoff to everything. At 6 p.m., we have several things that start at 6 p.m. First is our road closures start at 6 p.m. So the roads will be closed temporarily from the Legion, Maple Street to Main Street, and then Main Street to the Town Hall here. And that's for safety purposes as it relates to the fireworks, because we obviously don't want people trying to drive and watch the fireworks at the same time. So you can get in before 6 p.m. You can park anywhere along that area, pick out your spot, park, and watch the fireworks from there. And then after 6:30, approximately at the end of the fireworks, you'll be able to then drive through after that. So it's that temporary closure that'll be happening there with that. Also at 6 p.m., the radio broadcast will kick off on the FM, Kix 100.9. So I want to thank again for allowing us to do this and giving us the spot, free of charge. We have a half hour on the radio, which is phenomenal to allow us to bring this program to everybody. So tune into 100.9 on your radio, and you will hear a program that we've put together that includes a lot of speeches, both from friends past and present, as well as some recordings from the Congregational Church bell ringers. So we'll still be able to enjoy their program a bit, and then also from the Smith Academy Band. At 6:15, the fireworks will be launched from the Lions Club Pavilion. The weather looks good, despite the snow the next couple of days. We'll be good to go in terms of the launch and all of that. And just for everyone's benefit, I know there's been a lot of questions as far as where can you watch them from, what's the spot and all that. There's no designated spot. Again, we're trying to keep this COVID-friendly, socially distanced. So there's going to be a lot of spots from around town. And I was just talking with with guys that are going to be shooting them off, as far as you're going to be able to see them from a long ways, and unless you have trees in front of you, you're going to see them from town. So pick out a spot, and try and stay with your family, with the people that you're with, and either watch them from your car, or if you want to get out, then stay right at your car to watch them. So that'll be at 6:15 that those will be launched, and it is going to be a 15-minute mini grand finale, I guess, shall we say, for the whole time period. It's going to be chilly, so we're going to get them up there and again light up the night. Approximately 6:30, those will conclude. The road closures will be concluded at that point, and then again, people will be able to travel around town and enjoy the rest of the night with the luminaries. The only other reminder I do want to give people is for purposes. When driving, please keep your headlights on. That's a very important thing that we're trying to stress this year, is that no matter where you are in town, when you're driving, no matter how fast or slow you may be going, and we encourage people to certainly use caution throughout the night, but please keep your headlights on at all times. And please remember to follow the COVID guidelines, stay with people that you're living with and your family. If you get out of the vehicle, wear your mask and that, and keep your distance. We certainly want everyone to be healthy through the holidays. So with that, certainly if there's any questions, if I missed anything, but I think we've got a good portion of that covered there.
No, Bob, great job. And I just want to reiterate something Bob said. Bob and I had a long conversation about this today, that people do seem to not quite be understanding about not needing to go to certain areas to watch them. And I just, I know Bob said it, but I want to also just encourage people to really think about all the places from town where you could watch these. You really don't have to be down in that sort of main, what I call Hatfield proper area. That you could be, people can watch them probably from their houses in a lot of areas in town. So to just keep that in mind as they're trying to figure out where to go and where to watch them from. So, so much planning went into this, and Bob, as usual, has been so on the spot and so ahead of the game and been able to plan all of this and troubleshoot everything, and it's going to be really a fantastic night. We should thank the police department, Chief DeKoschak. We worked closely with him to really make sure that this event would be very safe traffic-wise, and with some other suggestions from his department. Of course, the fire department has a huge role here, both down at the launching area, but also with the planning and making sure that things were safe. So big thank you to both of those departments.
And I know, Bob, I know I just saw you pop on. I don't know if you caught it. If there's anything else from your side, I know we do have another call going out this Friday, just to remind everyone of all the details. The message boards are out, so we'll keep those out. And thanks to Bob for helping out with getting those, that communication together and doing that. We're really just trying to do as much as we can, obviously, with the changes this year, communicate as much as possible. I know the Gazette did an article today. WWF had some last night. We put it out to the other media as well, so we'll see if that can follow along. And we'll continue here over the next few days on our website and on Facebook to put more posts out there, any questions, to try and keep up with all that. So, Bob, certainly if you have anything else that you can think of.
Just for residents, realizing that the area at the pavilion and actually on the westerly portion from the elementary school all the way to the pavilion will be off limits to the general public starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday. The product will arrive and we cannot have anybody in there except for the technicians or the fire department at that time. So
Right.
no public beyond essentially the end of the cemetery after 10 a.m.
Right. So that is not a space that people should think they can go to view. They won't be allowed down there, right? I think that about covers it. I would also just do one more quick thank you to the Hatfield PTA, who kind of came up with this really interesting fundraiser of selling luminariums, which is really very helpful to residents in town. So they're selling these kits. I think it's too late to buy them. They're in the process of getting them ready for delivery. But it was really great for them to sort of step up and put those kits together for people. So thanks to them. Anything else, Bob? Is he gone?
No, he's still there.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
And happy holidays to everyone. And enjoy Luminarium.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for everything,
Bob, nice job.
Very good job. Okay, so next we do have the COVID update, but Carrie has stepped out. Do we want to go with the historical? Is she right outside?
We
Oh.
can, well,
Carrie-
so,
We got way too many people, so that's why.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if
The-
you want to
the-
do them first, and then we can do that, because there's too many people
Okay.
here for me to be back.
Okay, that
Yep.
sounds fine. Okay,
We're like over.
we're limited to 10 people in this room at any given time.
yeah. And
That's
and
why-
it hasn't been an issue before, but
Right.
today it's an
That's
issue.
why a few people
because of
left, just
people
to
coming in.
keep the
So
numbers.
let's move ahead to this agenda item. Kathy, if you want to come up to the microphone, maybe. And I don't know if anyone else here is wanting to come up to the other microphone. But, so we are going to have a discussion about the Historical Society use of the second floor, this says third floor, second floor of Town Hall.
I was calling it second floor for years, but then people kept referring to it as the third floor, so I finally gave in. Are you going back
Top
to
floor.
second now?
Top floor, there you go.
It's the
Top
top.
floor.
The second floor.
I mean, to me, it's the second floor, but
Yeah.
whatever, we have bigger
Okay.
fish to fry than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's, so Kathy, we'll turn it over to you, and,
Okay, great. So, again, for people who weren't on the beginning of the call, I'm Kathy Gao. I'm the curator of the Historical Museum and on the Hatfield Historical Society board. And so in the spring and the summer of 2019, we being the Historical Society, met with Marlene and with Ed, who was also on the select board then, to talk about what we would be doing with the historical museum collections that were stored on the second floor of the town hall during the renovation. And so, we made a plan. The town paid for movers so that the artifacts could be safe during the move. And the town has been paying for storing those two collections in two different sites for the last 16 months. Anyway, the only reason that those rooms are available on the third floor is because they were moved out for the renovation. And so the storage for the historical museum is the top floor, the second floor of the town hall, and it's been that way for about the last 10 years. It started with just the balcony, then the North Community Room was added, and the plan is for the whole museum to move over there once certain conditions were met, one of them being handicapped accessible. So anyway, we're very grateful to the town for, both handling the move and getting great movers, everything worked well, and for, paying for that storage in safe places where, as best we can tell, things have been well taken care of. So, but we were a little surprised, and I have to say a little dismayed when listening to the select board meetings from October 17th and November 4th to hear that the select board was talking about offering those spaces to other groups. We don't have other storage. I mean, the reason that we have been using those rooms for storage is because when the Historical Society 10 years ago went to the town and to the board to say, we're totally out of storage, we don't have a safe place to, keep these things. In fact, that was pretty much the case when the museum was started. And the board said, okay, we'll find you a space, and the best space that was available was the top floor of the town hall. And so since then, many, many improvements have been made. Things have been added because we wanted them added, and then the town added them: doors, lights, elevator. The elevator was specifically added to this building to go up to the top floor because the Historical Museum was moving in there. And funds were applied with the Community Preservation Committee, specifically where it says on the application for the Historical Museum going on that top floor. So anyway, I'm just, wondering, maybe because it's been now 16 months, maybe the select board, kind of forgot that we were there, and, there are all these great rooms up there now, but, we've been waiting for the collections to be able to come back so that we can, one, use them, for exhibits and for research, and also to check and make sure everything is okay. So we're hoping that that can happen soon, and that, the historical museum usage of the third floor can be reconfirmed or recertified or whatever.
Okay, so Ed had mentioned to me just before the meeting that he wanted to speak to this issue, so.
Okay, I've been doing a lot of research on the Historical Society Museum upstairs. So I just want to go through my spiel. Just give me a couple minutes to go through my spiel.
Take all the time you need, Ed.
Okay, in 2013, there was a feasibility study for the upstairs to have a museum upstairs, which included an HVAC system to give you humidity control, temperature control, an office, and also having the balcony become a floor. At that time, the price of that was $194,000 and some change. That was part of the overall plan, I believe, of a $5 million project that did not get approved by the town.
No, that was after.
Now, just let me finish. So the big concern, couple concerns come up on that is the balcony. There's a structural engineer's report that says the balcony is only presently good for 60 PSI, and if you had a floor, it would only be good for 50, and the code now is required to have 125 PSI for any kind of storage. So if that space became a museum, it would have to be probably restructured somehow in the balcony area, which may not be a major thing, but that was not included in the $194,000 price to make that space into a museum. Now, if you figure 8 years have gone by with a projected cost of construction between 3 and 5%, you'd now be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $230 to $260, maybe let's call it $250,000 in order to have the museum, because it's very important to have humidity control. Right now in that space up there, there's nothing. So I think it's important that this goes to the town to determine if they really want the museum up there, if they're going to fund it. I think it all comes down to funding. I mean, presently the Historical Society did store their stuff up there without an elevator. And I don't think it'd be fair to put the cart before the horse, meaning you move everything back up there, and then now we have to provide electrical, provide HVAC, provide all that. I think the town should know up front what the actual cost will be, and if the town wants it, fine. If they don't want it, fine. Now, some of this report could be refined to be a little bit lower because the existing report from 2013 indicated a gas furnace. Under the moratorium from Berkshire Gas, we're not allowed to have a furnace anymore. We'd have to modify that. But it's important for the collection to be protected with the right type of environment, the right type of humidity control. I know working at UMass, I was involved with some areas that there was mold to books and stuff. So it comes down to the cost. I mean, why move stuff up there and then have to go back and ask the town for money for air conditioning or heating? Presently up there, you also have 80-year-old steam pipes to the radiators. Just say if the collection was up there and a steam pipe burst, that whole collection would be damaged. I know that's an issue for us to address down the road on the heating system, because that's like the last thing to protect this building. But I am sort of concerned because of cost and because of the fact that I think the town should decide. If the town decides to have the museum up there, we should do it right. And if the town decides to fund it, we should do it right. So this is my concerns that I just want to present.
No, I'm glad to have you pipe in on this, because I feel like you know this building like the back of your hand. So and how everything has evolved here through the project, which was ongoing and sort of pieced together and happened over time. I have a question. Who does this collection belong to? Who owns this collection?
The town of Hatfield owns the collection.
Okay.
And the Hatfield Historical Society manages the collection for the town.
Okay, that was my question.
Yep.
Brian, did you want to pipe in at all?
No, not
Not just yet?
just yet.
Okay.
Okay, could I respond to a couple things that Ed said? So Ed, I appreciate so much, looking into some of this and thinking about, what's best for the collection and whatnot. The short answer is there's nowhere else for the collection to go. So, and the other thing is that the Historical Museum is not moving over until, all of the things are there that would be an improvement over where it is, and there's the funding from the town to do it. There was a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Jeff, you were involved on the select board when that was happening. The elevator, I think, was part of phase 2. There's still a phase 3. It would have to still be confirmed, the funding for that from the capital planning and all that. But the fact remains is that we still have, the collection needs to be stored. And so it doesn't cost the town anything
Right
to
now, the
move stuff
collection is
back.
being stored and it's being protected. So while we're figuring this stuff out, is it wrong if the COA uses the room for exercising? Would it be wrong if the planning board had a big
Yes.
meeting up there?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because for 16 months, the collections have been in storage at places where we can't get to them. So one, you can't use the collection for exhibits, you can't use the collection for research, you can't use the collection for Facebook posts, for any kind of interaction. It's just, and the other thing is that there's no way to monitor the collection. I mean, we have our collection in two different places. One is at 5 College Annex. They have a, beautiful climate-controlled facility. Probably, most probably, it's in great shape there and in better shape than it would be here. But we're paying on a monthly basis to do that, and we can't access the collection. What good is it to have a collection if we can't make use of it and access it? And at Benson Storage, we have a climate-controlled unit, but there was, the town didn't want to go for 2 rooms. The bigger room, got rented while we were waiting. And so, stuff is totally filled to that capacity. So we can't even check on things in that, let alone get to them. We can't even check on things to see if they're okay, other than monitoring temperature and humidity, which we've been doing, all along the way. I mean, we were using the on a continual basis, the top floor spaces for storage. So not only was it being used for storage, we had 2 Porter McLeod machine shop grants where researchers came in there and worked on the collection. We inventoried the entire textile collection in the Big North Community Room, which was holding the textile collection. I mean, things would move over back and forth between the town hall and the museum on a continual basis. So work was happening up there all the time. People were up there. It didn't have an elevator, but, the thing is, it would be great to have these perfect solutions, but usually perfect is not an option. And so to choose nothing instead of waiting for the perfect solution where we can't protect, we don't even know if we're protecting our collection if it's being, stored in these 2 separate places. It'll cost the town less money to move the collections back to the 3rd floor and have those spaces be the storage collection for now until we get to whatever's going to happen with the next step. Is the museum going to move from the 2nd floor of the library, or is it going to stay where it is? Those are decisions to be made later with approval from funding, et cetera. But, to leave it in places where we're paying for it when we have the free place that has been used for the last 10 years for that purpose, I don't understand where this is coming from. And there was some talk at some of those meetings that, well, this building is in a flood zone, it would be better to put it somewhere else. That's why the select boards from the past put it on the 2nd floor, because it's on the 2nd floor of a brick building. And so that is a much safer solution than being anywhere over on the ground next to the Farm Museum in a space that has not been built and is unlikely to get built. Who would fund that? So this seems like it's the simplest, least expensive, most practical solution that lets Hatfield's fabulous collection, be used by researchers, by people coming in exhibits. Otherwise, why do we have it?
So just to, let me be very clear that I take the protection of this collection very seriously. I still think, we need to have this discussion, because it sounds like, if I'm hearing Ed correctly, that even putting it upstairs doesn't actually remove it from potential damage. It might be even more so because it's not climate controlled. It's in 2 climate controlled places right now, correct?
Yeah, I would say the Benson's climate-controlled storage is about the same as being on the 2nd floor. It's hot-ish, and so we've monitored temperature on the 2nd floor, and we've monitored temperature over there, and that's a very similar location. The advantage that we have upstairs is that we can get in and see what conditions are. We can open up boxes and see is there mold growing inside here? Is there, are things starting to crack because the humidity is getting too low?
Right.
No control over that at Benson's.
Sorry. It's the community call. Everybody should be getting it, I'm sure. Anyway, sorry about that. I understand what you're saying, Ed, that we need to know if that indeed is where the collection needs to land somewhere on a permanent basis.
And town
right?
has to decide.
And town does have to decide, particularly if it's going to cost that kind of money to do that upstairs, and that would be something we would.
But it doesn't cost any money to bring it back other than the cost of the movers.
Right. But then there's no other use for that upstairs.
As there hasn't been for the last 10 years. The reason they have
Hasn't been an
lights.
elevator.
Right, there wasn't an elevator, so we couldn't use, I mean, space needs change, meeting space needs change, things change. All of, and
Okay.
we need to.
Maybe there's someone on the call from Community Preservation that would like to speak, because the application that was made to the town, I think it was, put forward by Phil Genovese, was for the elevator work and the work for the third floor to the Community Preservation was specifically for the purpose of the historical museum on the third floor. That's why Community Preservation funds were used to fund that.
But I do want to point out, when they did the offices here, and we got kicked into Architectural Access Board to bring the whole building up to handicap accessible, we probably would have had to put the elevator in anyways. I do agree that the elevator was part of community preservation, giving money, and it was the museum, the Historical Society that got it, but I just want to make a point on the other side that, we probably would have had to put it in anyways.
Also at that time, I mean, that may have been the case, but at the time, there were a lot of arguments being made by folks in town that we did not need to put an elevator to the top floor because the top floor was closed. It wasn't closed, it was housing the Historical Museum storage, and people were working up there on the collection on an ongoing basis. But from the town's point of view, it was closed, and so the case was made, we don't need to spend the extra money to have the elevator go to the second floor. The Historical Society pushed for that because the museum storage was located up there, and the hope one day was to move the whole museum over there. So that's why that funding was applied for and received for the second floor elevator.
Yes, I agree with you, but that was all part of this plan that never got approved to make that into a museum upstairs.
Right, I think you're thinking of the whole big plan that didn't get approved with the
Right.
climate change thing in the back and all that.
Ready when you are.
That plan with the architect, Shea, I'm forgetting his first name, that was a plan that was made afterwards, with the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So that was still supposed to be the plan, with leveling the floors. We did talk about the, PSI, what can the weight support in there? And had to make sure that what we put in there, we couldn't put flat files in there, that what we put in there had to have a weight limit.
So by Ed's estimate, it would be about $250,000 to make the space appropriate for historical collection.
Went by the last
Yes,
plan,
by
which has to be,
You're talking
would have to
about
be
moving
updated
the-
and
You're
changed.
talking about moving the whole museum over there now?
What I'm asking is that figure, from what I'm hearing, is to make it appropriate to store things. So I'm assuming that there'd be even an added cost to make it appropriate to be an actual functioning museum that people could visit, and that everything would be set up nicely displayed and whatnot. There'd be added cost.
For the museum to move over, I'm sure there would be added costs.
Okay.
For the collection to come back for storage, other than the movers, there's really not added costs, other than probably putting a lock on the front, the south community room door, because since so much space was lost in the balcony, we would probably, we would need that space as well.
Okay, Brian, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, to me, listening to the conversation, and of course I recollect much of what's being discussed from town meetings before, and a few of them once I was on the board. So there definitely was the conversation that Ed alluded to, and actually Kathy, you did too, that after phase 1 and 2 were completed in Town Hall, which is where we are today, there would be the conversation of having a Phase 3, which was in fact to have the museum upstairs. Right? And would you agree with that, Kathy?
Yes.
That's what the conversation was. And to Ed's point, that's what would need to go back to town hall for the funding. We'd have to get all the proper architectural drawing, all of that. So that's one thing. The other thing, which I think is short-term, what you're asking, is to bring the artifacts back to town hall and store them here, so that the people could have access
To
to
continue
them in the
having
meantime.
a storage site for
Right.
the Historical Museum, which we've had for 10 years.
I understand that. But once the renovation started, we actually moved them to places that are safer. Well, you're shaking your head no, but we've been
Well,
told
I'm saying-
they're in locations that.
I would say
they're-
Benson Storage is no safer than upstairs.
Okay.
It's less safe because it can't be monitored.
So I guess, are you asking for every single thing that is being stored now to come back upstairs? Or are there bits and
Yes.
pieces
Yes.
in the meantime while a discussion happens about a Phase 3?
No, we're asking for the
Have to be
entire,
moved again?
That's
actually-
exactly what I'm asking.
I mean, wouldn't everything have to be moved again? If we went back to town residents and asked them to approve a project
They don't have to be
with
moved again.
what,
Yeah.
the funding source, who knows what, but ask them to approve a project that would allow you to do what you actually want to do up there, both some storage and actually museum space, the whole collection would have to be moved again.
that's true.
And stored.
So my question is, where is the collection most at risk? Is it most at risk staying where it is? I'm assuming that you've agreed to put it in places where it's considered safe. It may not be perfectly accessible, but it's safe. Is it riskier to move it back, continually move this stuff and not knowing where it's going to land and what the long-term plan is?
Diana, you've been in town a long time. How long does it usually take for projects like a big, amorphous, multifaceted project like this to actually come to fruition?
Well, I mean, they move on different tracks, obviously. A lot of it
Could you
depends on funding
imagine,
sources
like,
and that sort of thing, but,
If
I
this
mean,
was
we're
all
not.
passed,
this
happening
would-
within 5 years?
I would think so. If we have townspeople to approve a third phase that would be this project, I mean, I don't think it would take 5 years.
No, well, I think the work that needs to be done is minimal compared to
Yes,
the
right.
first two phases that have already taken
The
place.
elevator's already in place.
Yeah,
It's talking about some structural stuff to that
Balcony.
balcony area, and I'm assuming
HVAC system up in the
HVAC
ceiling.
things and
Ceiling has to be cut. A panel board has to be brought upstairs. A mop sink would have to be put in. A couple walls, depending if they stayed with that, would have to go up for the office. There's a few things. I mean, everything would have to get moved again. Now, it's not, if the town approves 250,000 or whatever, depending, I think the first thing would have to be doing is approving another updated one of these studies to see what the actual cost is, because some of these things in here may not be required to be done now. There's a couple items. I haven't actually gone up there and checked everything off the list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know things like what you do like a fire suppression system up there
That's already, I mean, the
could
sprinkler
also
system's already
damage the
in.
collection, but obviously so would fire. So, I mean, there's questions about that sort of stuff. Right. We
Right.
need to have professionals that take a look at that because, like I said, I take protecting this collection very seriously.
absolutely.
We can't access the collection until it comes back.
May I make a
Bob
comment
Wagner.
at some point? I just want to make sure I have a chance to speak on
Yes,
this.
yes.
This is Bob Wagner from Community Preservation.
Yes, Bob.
So I just want to point out that Ed is right, that the state probably would have required us to have ADA compliance for the entire building. But in 2012, when we were reviewing this proposal, I can speak from, my own recollection as well as going back and looking at our minutes. And then, of course, the application itself, which included, I think you've seen the comment or the letter that was submitted by Phil Genovese, the Department of Public Works Director, about moving the museum up to the 3rd floor. The discussion of the Community Preservation Committee and its interest or support for this project had a lot to do with that understanding and assurance that the museum would move to the 3rd floor. In supporting the $125,000 in CPA funding for the elevator. But I also want to point out that the very following year, we provided $85,000 towards the HVAC system in town hall. And that was exclusively because quite frankly, HVAC wasn't necessary at all to make the building ADA compliant, right? It makes it more comfortable, but not ADA compliant. But
He froze.
for HVAC was that would help with the climate control in town hall to support and protect the museum collection.
That was
So
just for the
it's not
collection,
just
the
one
museum.
grant that went to get the elevator. It's also the second grant that went for HVAC, again, with the understanding and the knowledge, or at that time, the expectation that the museum would be utilizing that 3rd floor.
And that 85,000 was to provide HVAC and for the 3rd floor? Or just for the
No,
rest
it
of the
was for
building?
HVAC it was a contribution to the HVAC installation in the building.
I don't know.
And so while we didn't pay for the whole HVAC, right, because it was much more than that, our contribution was with the understanding that the museum would benefit from HVAC, from air conditioning in the building.
Okay. So, but again, it gets back to making it a museum, which is going to require additional work and additional expenses, not just making it a storage space. Do you understand how I
No, I
perceive
understand
that
what you're saying,
difference?
but I'm just saying, just a storage space is to not acknowledge that it is a working collection.
I understand.
If
No, I
it is
acknowledge
stored
that.
off-site places, it's been stored off-site for 16 months. It was, initially the project was going to be 6 to 9, and then it was a year, 16 months. So all of that time, we have not had access to the collection both to monitor it and to be able to use it and let townspeople and community and researchers use it. And so I'm just not understanding the reluctance to move it back in. Are you so desperate for spaces that you have to bump the historical museum out of there? Or is it that you don't want to have to pay for movers twice? Because seriously, for us to talk about all these things happening, I've been in Hatfield long enough. We're talking minimum of 2 years, if not 5 years or more. As Huddy Bardwell used to say, I could be dead before this actually happened. So, we need to bring the collection back, have it be storage, and then we can move ahead on a reasonable schedule to look at the options, maybe have another feasibility study done to see what would be involved. There are less expensive options as well. A mini split in each room might take care of things, and a separate thing in the balcony, as opposed to having some, more system-wide HVAC system. There are less expensive options that could be looked at. The advantage of moving the museum to the town hall versus where it is, of course, is now that it is handicapped accessible. Maybe the storage, as you pointed out in the earlier meeting, Ed, from looking online, yes, museums need as much storage as display space, usually more. And so if the museum is going to move over because the elevator is over here and you can get to it, maybe the storage moves over there where there is no elevator. That would be an option
Over
to
there.
consider, being the second floor of the
I see.
library.
Okay.
I guess the other question is, will be asked by the town probably, if the town is going to put up $250,000, is the museum should be here or should the collection be another building someplace else protected?
But
That
we don't
might be the
have another
question.
building someplace else.
And another building would be far more than $250,000.
I mean, Ed, that's always been the
Well,
problem in
like
the
an
past.
addition someplace, if you put an addition on, you may be able to bring in like a portable classroom or something. I'm just looking outside the box. I'm looking at things that the university's done. They brought in like portable classrooms, they brought in
Like on the
different
ground
things.
floor
They-
you're talking about?
Yeah, I
Built a
mean, I'm
pole
not
shed.
sure that for a collection like this, something like that.
But that will be asked by the town if they're going to spend $250,000, if this is the only place that,
This is
they
the
can
only
have,
place.
so.
I mean, this is why the space was given to us before, because it wasn't being used and it wasn't very improved. And now that it's improved, all the things that the Historical Society has been asking for and the town has, thankfully provided over the last 10 years, now a bunch of those things are there, and now you're saying, oh, what a great space. I think we can use this for other
The
things.
space is good for meeting space. It's not set up right now for humidity control. There's no air conditioning up there. There's no humidity control up there. I mean, there's just
Going for
steam-
perfection. We don't
there's
have
old
perfection yet.
80-year-old steam pipe radiators that are up there right now. Just want to point out. I just
I've been
want to
working in that space for 10 years. I'm quite knowledgeable about what the temperature and humidity conditions are up there.
Could I make a suggestion? And I hear everything Ed's saying, and Diana, myself, and Kathy, and the commitments made in the past. But I don't know if right now, tonight, we're going to be able to
Yeah, no,
decide
I think
anything. I mean, I think the important part was you and other members being here to bring forth and open up the conversation. Because we have been talking about the upstairs as additional meeting space, which we do need. But I also understand where you're coming from and want to access all the historical documents. I mean, we're celebrating our 350th year, right? And so we
Yes.
want to see those,
Yes.
and before. So I totally get it.
And the
And I don't want you to think
Collection's
I'm...
been in storage.
Yes, and I understand that. And I don't want you to think that I'm trying to end the conversation, because I'm not. But what I think makes more sense is to have a smaller group of folks, of people, whether Bob Wagner, yourself, Ed, Diana, or I, like let's sit down and have a conversation of what makes the most sense today, and what do we see tomorrow, the future,
Yes.
looking like.
Yes.
That's what I would suggest happen. I don't know how you feel, Kathy, representing the...
I was hoping tonight you guys could vote to say we reconfirm the Hatfield Historical Museum use of the third floor as it has been voted on by 2 prior sets of selectmen. And we've been using the space for the last 10 years. And now that an elevator is added, you're taking it away.
Well,
We haven't taken anything
I
away.
just wanna
I don't
point
think
out,
that's a fair comment.
That's true that the other board said they could make it into a museum, but the bottom line is the townspeople, whether or not they're going to fund it, it's always the bottom line. It's whether the...
3.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. You're looking for a spot right now to access the collection. The collection's very important, and you're hoping to put it back upstairs so you have access to it. But right now, upstairs also doesn't have any kind of environmental controls and humidity controls for that collection. So is that, I guess we
Yeah, I
have
mean,
the-
like, what
We
is
don't have
best
any
for
of
the-
those environmental controls in the top floor of the museum now.
I guess I'm looking
This
at
is
this.
no
I
worse
would
than
agree
there.
that this is a conversation that's important enough to not just make a
Right.
quick decision tonight. This is about the long-term protection of this collection, not just the short-term, make sure that it's accessible in a couple of weeks type of thing. This is part of a larger discussion, and I think that it has to be something that we do, carefully, and with, we also will have to at some point approach townspeople about funding, the appropriate care of the collection.
Maybe we could ask if anybody who's here in person or on the Zoom call would like to
Sure.
say anything.
That's fine.
Anybody? John, would you come up to the microphone?
You said form a committee. Let's form a committee with the Historical Society, Historical Commission, find out what's the bottom line dollar figure to bring that into a museum, get it done.
That's what
You
we're,
heard your talk here about another freestanding building, an exit to some building. You know how much that's going to cost.
right.
So we don't want to go that route. In the meantime, how about utilizing the other spaces we have in the community for meetings? How about the community room at the elementary school? That was built for community space. The doors were locked so nobody could enter into the other part of the school while it was in session or even after hours. Make it available. Our Smith Academy Library was used as a select board meeting.
John, just
And
to-
I know, but the
but-
space is available.
But right now, those spaces are not available to us. The public is not welcome into those two buildings right now. So
Okay,
right
hopefully in the
now and
future it
for-
will be.
Well, in the future it will be, and
All right.
that's all, it's all part of that
of it.
larger discussion about our space, how we utilize our space, what we really need for space. I know I beat this drum all the time.
This was a
but
screw up
we-
from day one, ma'am. I'm sorry.
What was the screw up from day
The
one?
whole building, it should have been done, yes.
Well,
Told the
I mean-
townspeople, hey, it's gonna cost X millions of dollars, let's do it right from the ground up. We got a boiler we gotta replace now?
They decided not to do it.
Okay,
They came up with
I
a
know,
plan.
but it wasn't
They came up
sold
with
the
a
right
plan,
way.
John, they came up with a plan for $5 million, and the town turned it down.
This
That
isn't
plan
about
was
revisiting the
updating
whole,
everything.
all the phases of
It's-
town hall.
the
That was
horse
pre-
is
that
gone,
was-
the
John,
horse is gone,
John,
everything like that.
John.
But we gotta put the
That-
museum
John,
somewhere.
That was presented to townspeople and it was
I know.
voted down. And here we are, we're doing the
We're
best we
doing it,
can
yes.
to move forward. We want to do the best we can for the collection, okay? So
Okay.
it has to be a well-thought-out plan that involves not just getting it back here, but then what happens, okay?
I like your
So-
idea, but put a committee together to
Well,
get
that's what we
this done
just
right.
suggested before you even
Get
came to the
it, get
mic.
it done right.
Yep.
The first time, not haphazard, back and forth. What did it cost to drill the holes back in the ceilings here, disrupt all your business transactions going on here?
John, that's another reason why I don't want to put the cart in front of the
For the
horse.
horse.
You don't want to move all the collection up there, and then you got to renovate everything, and you got to move
You're
it
right,
again.
You're right, but this all should have been thought out beforehand.
But if it took 2 years for
2
that to
years.
happen, let's say, even if it could be done in 2 years, the collection can't be unmonitored for that long. Anything could happen to it.
Yeah,
We have to be able to get to it. We have to also be able to use it. So where are
Understood.
we going to bring it back?
understood. So, okay, was there anybody, did any of you others in the room want to say anything?
I'd just like to speak to actually what Brian mentioned about getting all of the stakeholders together and to discuss this, you know, in a maybe a smaller appropriate setting. But I would like to make sure that you do include the Hatfield Historical Commission.
Yes.
Because they are an integral part of maintaining, protecting,
Yes,
and making the collection available. So I'd want to make sure that
Yes,
they are
absolutely.
actively involved. And
Agreed.
just to the point of, you know, using that space for meetings, you know, I happened to go next door to get some things for the Board of Health in Phil's old office, and that's a fairly good-sized open space. And it even has a conference table in it, where that could be utilized, at least in the short term, not long term necessarily, but short term, for smaller group meetings, just to kind of
I mean, and that's all going to be
decompress.
part of that,
Yeah,
that
exactly,
larger
just to
discussion.
decompress
Yes,
some of the need for more meeting space.
yes,
And, you know, now with COVID, meeting space is more at a premium.
Right.
Even though we do most things virtually
Right.
nowadays. So I just want to make sure that,
Right.
you know, all the stakeholders
Absolutely.
are involved.
Yes.
So by
Absolutely.
having all the stakeholders is what's going to make it work.
Appropriate, exactly.
You know, and there may need to be some compromises on different stakeholders' parts, and I mean all of stakeholders. But
everybody.
together, you know, if you don't work together, you don't have a plan. I hear everything Kathy is saying, I do, and I hear everything everybody is saying. But it was 10 years ago, the world has changed, the building has changed, the needs have changed. And so we just, together, need to come up with the next phase or the next plan to take care of the
If I might-
historical.
If I may, to Kathy's point earlier about projects taking a long time, and I know this one has been a long time, and I went back to
that's
our
forever.
records while you were talking. So this application came in 2012. In 2013, we provided we contributed to the HVAC, but in 2011, we also provided $100,000 towards ADA accessibility projects at Town Hall. I think most of that went into the bathrooms, but the grant was specifically for ADA compliance, which included ramps and bathrooms. Not that we were going to pay for the whole thing, but contribute to that part of the project.
Right.
And I just want to read from the letter that was submitted with the grant proposal in 2012. It says, this is from the Department of Public Works, with the vote of the Select Board to release the top 2 rooms in the Town Hall to provide the space needed for the Historic Museum collection, I feel that this is a vital project for funding from community preservation funds. That was the $125,000 for the elevator. I know times have changed, but we just got the elevator, and we never got the whole idea was that we were going to, our contribution to the elevator was for the, to help with the museum. And so while times have changed and we're 8 years out, we haven't succeeded. We got the elevator, but we're not getting it for at least what the community preservation funds expected and intended it to be used for. So that is something that we need to be thinking about, because these funds were expended or granted for that particular purpose. And we did provide ADA compliance money the year before. So I don't think, as I remember correctly from our conversations, that we would have put more money into ADA compliance if it wasn't for the fact that it would also benefit the historic museum.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm certainly not disputing all of that. I mean, that was made clear even in Kathy's initial presentation to us tonight. I look at this from a standpoint of not changing my mind and wanting to use that space as meeting space, but making sure that when we're moving the collection, it's for a good purpose and not to just have to move it again if we're going to be doing more work up there.
We're
So
moving it for a good purpose. It's so that it can be monitored and used.
I understand that too, Kathy. Okay, was there anyone else on visiting online that might want to add anything? Anybody?
Maybe
So,
they can mute.
Is there anybody that would like to speak that's attending virtually?
so can we do this? I understand your sense of urgency, and it makes sense to me. I get that. I'm not disputing that.
No, none
Can
of us
we,
are.
pardon?
I'm just saying none of us are.
So can we set up this meeting with all of the parties that need to be present, including, as you mentioned, Historical Commission, obviously Historical Society, maybe Phil should be there. Ed, I would love it if you could be there because he's so familiar with the building and how all of this.
Community preservation.
Yes, absolutely. We'll make sure that it's a complete list of everybody. But could we do that in early January? Sure. Can we do that? I mean, obviously, the next couple weeks is a little tough with the holidays and everything. So let's maybe set a time frame for doing that in like the first week or two of January. Is that good with you? Okay. And have this conversation.
It's an important conversation.
It is an important
It really is.
conversation, and
But I just want to try to get it right, well, the 5th time, or however many times it is now, but we want to get it right the first time. And I think the conversation is important. Obviously, the topic is important. The history of Hatfield that Kathy and others have worked so hard to preserve and to share with the public. You talked about your Facebook posts. I used to see those all the time. Like to see things pop up, especially not being from here. So, it's great stuff. And I would also add that this isn't to
Can they
say.
mute, please?
It's also,
Can
somebody
everybody
needs to
mute?
mute. It also isn't to say that I mean, we just don't know how it's going to play out yet, I guess, is what I was going to say. And that's what we've got to figure out, what makes the best sense. So, I know it's an emotional issue,
I mean, I
but
think
it's
that-
important to,
Right.
we just have to do our best to get it right.
I think this whole town takes its history very seriously.
Absolutely.
That's why we're in the throes of this huge celebration, and that's what those fireworks are about Saturday night. It's celebrating all of that. And so,
I mean, we just
let's-
don't want to do it piecemeal. We want to do it right the first time, and we want to make sure the town supports it with the funding. That's all.
and that the collection is as protected as possible. And so if that's satisfactory to you, to just start this conversation again early January, and I would assume we could look for a recommendation from that group of people.
I would hope so, and I would just once again want to say out loud that I believe the meeting is for two purposes. Short term, so there's access to the history, and then long term as far as showcasing the history. So
Is there a way to, you're so familiar with the collection, is there a way what you really need to have access to could be moved here, and there maybe would be some things that wouldn't have to be moved?
In the textile collection at the 5 College Annex, the answer is yes, as long as they have notice, they could pull a certain box.
Okay.
And we have the boxes all indexed, so that could happen. At Benson's, because there was no room, it's all in there unless it's the 5-10 things that are on the front edge. There's no way to get to it without pulling everything out. And so there have been a lot of things that we have not been able to access in the last 16 months. I've been waiting to bring them back, do restoration on this document. The frame is somewhere back in there. I can't get to it. I was waiting until it was coming back to the balcony so that we could do that work. That's happened a number of times, so.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something that needs to be discussed with this group too. A partial solution, a partial temporary solution until we can come up with a really solid long-term one.
Maybe bringing the Benson storage items back and letting the things and the textiles and the archives and the 5 College Annex stay there until we figure things out a bit more. But we would still need, at least say the North Community Room and maybe some of the balcony to bring that stuff back to.
Okay, so maybe that's part of the discussion.
absolutely.
Okay. We want you to, we want to work with you and come up with the best solution possible. So we'll schedule that meeting in early January.
Right,
Okay?
does that sound?
Okay. Great. I appreciate, Kathy, this presentation you put together.
Putting us
because
on your agenda and.
Of course.
Of course, and this was helpful because this all happened between when I was on the board the last time and when I rejoined the board, so I was not familiar with a lot of this time frame. So all of that was helpful to me, and certainly all of Ed's information and his input is so valuable because of knowing the building and the project so well. So, okay, great. We will revisit this and we'll do
Thanks,
that
Kath.
soon.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob Wagner.
Could you ask them to rejoin the meeting?
Yeah, you too.
I wonder if Hadley went home. Did she convince?
She was one of the 13.
No, I know, but I
Oh.
wonder if she
No,
convinced
she's
Carrie
probably
to
with
drive her
Sharon.
home or
and
something.
Oh, I don't know.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kathy.
Want to take 2 minutes?
Do you need to take?
Well, don't we need to get Carrie?
Yeah, but I thought they were
Oh, all
going
right.
to tell her to come in. Here she
Oh,
comes.
dun, da, da, da.
Is Hadley still here? Oh, I figured she convinced you to drive her home.
What are you guys doing to her?
We were very well behaved.
Good,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
Sure, I'll find out later. Is
We
she
did
coming?
tell her to text her brother to see if he wanted to come pick her up, and I don't think she's
No,
gotten an
he's not
answer.
home. So oh, she's coming back in.
And Sharon's coming too.
Okay, good. Do you need a break, or are you?
No,
Okay.
I just
Are you
didn't
good,
know
Ed,
if we needed time to.
Okay. Have a seat, Hadley. Get comfy. My daughter's here observing the meeting tonight. So our COVID update, we're joined by Carrie Flaherty.
COVID update, we are, knock on wood, doing well still. We currently, at this point, have 2 positive cases.
Sharon, could you ask them to step out? Absolutely. Or shut the door? Sorry.
We have 2 positive cases in town. Those parties, if all goes as planned and continues to stay as is, will come off quarantine on Friday. I don't want to say it, but it's been a while since I've had to deal with a positive case, like almost a week. So I say that's a while when you're talking about what we were going through. That's where we're at with that, and which is great. People are getting better. Those that had been sick are much better. Some are still mending and doing, but they are doing better bit by bit each day. Just to touch base about the schools, we have, just so everybody's aware, we have 25 communities that come here to school because of school choice. It's a lot of communities. Even though we're a small district, we are one of the biggest districts that have the most amount of sending towns, should I say, making it a big district, even though the numbers are still small. So it was a hard decision after Thanksgiving to move forward with having it go back to being fully hybrid, which is what we were doing prior to having our spike in numbers in town specifically, which is why we had gone fully remote. And in a very long and involved discussion and a lot of research, it was decided that priority kids have gone back to in-person. So the high school has approximately 30 kids a day that are there, give or take the day of the week. And the elementary school, I think, has about 40, give or take. And then they have maybe 10 staff between each building that are there supervising the children. And the teachers are all fully remote live teaching still versus what it was back before the remote session happened. They weren't doing the live teaching per se because it just didn't work with hybrid. So they've stayed they're out of the building and they're doing live teaching, which is really, from my understanding, has been working well. I don't know, my child actually goes to 4 days a week because of being a priority student, so it has worked. It worked both ways for us as a family. I know that there are some families that have had some struggles and others that it's worked well for, so it's a very hard time to be dealing with that, but that is the reason the reason why I could not, as the COVID coordinator, justify having back live in person more than what we approved for the priority kids was because the numbers are so high in our sending towns. Hatfield may not be high, which we're not thankfully anymore, but the sending towns that we have, a lot of them have high numbers and they've only trended up. They have not trended backwards. So that's a big thing that we have to look at overall when we make the decisions of having the kids in the building or not.
So I'm somebody who just really believes we've got to get kids back in the building as soon as possible, but I will say I thought the decision after we went remote, after we experienced the higher numbers a few weeks ago, I thought the decision to stay that way until after the holidays was the right one, mainly because I think it's really hard for families to go back and forth.
Absolutely.
They're remote, they're hybrid, it's got to be, I mean, my daughter, my youngest is in 10th grade, so I don't have some of the struggles that the elementary parents have, but I can't imagine what it's like for them. And I will say that the live remote teaching, I had the opportunity to be close by when Hadley was having some classes this week, and they were awesome. Mm-hmm. It was really, I enjoyed listening to them. One was an English class, and when I had a chance to listen to Spanish, and it was great. Sort of the back and forth and the dialogue and the interaction. I was encouraged by that. Yeah. There's been so many things that have felt discouraging about last school year and this school year, but that was really good. So I do want to mention that. But so I think for the sake of families and just trying to manage everything, I think that was the right choice.
And that's what we decided. So that was the vote of the school committee is that we would stay in person for priority children only from now until January 7th. Mm-hmm. And then after that, in the next few weeks, obviously, even with the holidays in act, we will be following the numbers weekly like we normally do anyways and see where the trends are going. And the plan and the hope is that we'll get back to in person and hopefully more students in person in the building. Like, that is clearly the goal. That is what we need to do. We need to get everybody back in the building as soon as possible, but we have to do it safely. We have the safeguard set in place, but having, again, if it was only Hatfield students, they'd all be in the building.
Right.
But we don't have that option, and it is what it is. Like, you can't tell the school choice kids they all have to stay home remote and all the Hatfield kids can go. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
But to keep everybody safe, staff and students, it was the decision that was made. And I know people are frustrated with that, but that's where it really lies.
There's never an easy decision.
No,
There's
and it's not an easy decision, and I'll be honest, I've been on both ends of the spectrum in the last 4 months when it comes to the school.
Right.
Whereas I have not agreed with some decisions, and I do with others, and you know, I can only give my information that I have and give my opinion, and then whatever the boards decide to do is what the boards decide to do. Like, I only control so much. As for really just quickly, as for sports, the Board of Health and myself, our recommendation to the school board was not to allow winter sports, meaning we will not allow level 3 and 4, 2, 3, and 4 of basketball. Hatfield doesn't offer anything else for a winter sport. It will be considered, they're discussing it Thursday night for what is considered level 1 basketball, which is drills. Basically, it's practice. You can do shooting on your own and things like that. It was discussed today in the Board of Health meeting that they had. In the fall, everything was questionable. We supported sports in the fall, and it didn't happen. It was voted down. Everybody gets that right now. I guess there's a handful of people that are frustrated with the fact that we're even considering sports currently. And I think in the fall, in the fall I would have supported practices then, and it never was a conversation that was brought up and discussed, and it should have been. You can't fix the past, obviously. We can only move forward with what we're talking about in the next 6 months of what's left of school. And so for mental health reasons of students, we really need to get the kids being able to do something active. So to do that intra-school related, that's the goal. They won't start till January 11th, which is what the MIAA rules apply for even sports to start. It's going to be specific hours, it's going to be specific people, and it's only going to be allowed for certain, like, you can't just decide that, oh, this year you want to go play basketball. Like, that's not how it's going to work. It's going to be the normal team stuff that would have been active. So we did agree upon that today at the Board of Health meeting, and I know it'll get discussed again on Thursday, but again, it'll only be level 1. There won't be scrimmaging or anything like that. It'll only be specific to practice and for a certain time of the afternoon.
Right. It's really just, sorry.
No,
It's
go.
really just a hard thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we were very emotionally connected to the fall sports season, and that was something that don't get me started. I didn't take that too well. You know, I get the winter sports, it's a little different. They're indoors, numbers have changed, you know, that sort of thing. But ultimately, kids have lost a lot.
Right.
And I think we have to do what we can to try to get them as much back as possible in a safe way. And I think sports and athletics and activities and drills or conditioning or whatever it is, if there's a way to make it work safely,
Right.
I think it's really important. There was a survey sent around today about what families might like to see. And I didn't respond to it yet because I actually wanted to involve Hadley in the response, and we didn't have time to do that before I came to the meeting. But so hopefully families will respond to that. So I know you had something.
No, well, I just, actually, I had a question, and I don't know if it's been thought all the way, if it's already been decided upon. So when you talked, Carrie, about level 1, is that really just internal to Hatfield only, or would they?
Correct. No,
Okay.
It won't go anywhere outside the district. It'll be grades 9 through 12. They had already voted this year to not do middle school sports. Apparently that was already a cut out thing.
Yep.
So we have stuck with that it'll be a JV varsity situation, and it will be limited to 12 athletes in a practice with a coach and then a supervisor of the whole thing. There'll be one way in, one way out. So drop off will be by the back door and pickup will be by the front door, so that the kids that are coming in for the next hour of practice won't be crossing over with the kids leaving. There'll be hand sanitizers, masks have to be worn masks have to be worn all the time. every child will have their own basketball. They're expected to rebound their own basketball, and they won't be doing any kind of passing stuff. It'll be specific to dribbling, shots and stuff like that on the hoops and whatnot, and basically taking turns. There's 6 hoops in the gym, 12 kids, it'll be 2 kids a basket, and then the coach will be able to maybe set up some type of drills that they can do spread out in the gym, that they won't be on, like, playing against each other.
I believe, Carrie, one of the options offered to families that was interesting to me was actually non-sport specific conditioning. So, which would mean, like, Hadley doesn't play basketball, but could still go for some type of conditioning work, at certain specified times.
If they figure that out and they come forward with a plan for that too, I would absolutely 100% support it. I think our kids need to be doing something interactive, especially during the winter months, that they don't need to be in front of the screen, because they clearly are getting a lot of that because of the way school is right now. And I think for their own mental health, it's important for us to be looking at that overall. This has been stressful for all of us, but it's really, I've seen the literature that's come out from the pediatric doctors, especially locally, and the amount of patients they've seen with mental health issues coming in the last couple months is through the roof, and that's a scary situation. So we're trying our best to do what's safe for everybody, but it's going to be kept within the school district. They won't have interaction with other schools. And just so people understand, a lot of the schools that are allowing sports currently are completely fully remote. And so in doing that, like this, for instance, the city of Springfield, they're only playing amongst their own schools. They have a lot of schools buildings in their district, obviously, but they're not playing outside the city of Springfield. All those kids are city of Springfield kids. Northampton has voted to allow certain winter sports, but basketball is not one of them. They're not letting them play against other teams, but they are going to allow a plan to be put in place for them to practice like we are. And some of the Franklin County teams, a lot of those towns are still remote. They're not in-person learning.
Right.
And that's a different thing, because when you're remote, then it is the family's choice. It's the family's choice of what their child's going to do. If they want to let their child go and play sports and interact with other kids, and I say this lightly because I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but you're taking that choice and that risk yourself for you and your family. When we're doing hybrid, we can't take that choice away from other families and from the staff that are choosing to follow the guidelines that are set in place, and that they don't have much interaction other than coming to work to do their job or going to school and then going home. So by allowing sports to be, especially in the winter months, inside, it's a big deal. So that is really why we, myself and the Board of Health, voted against having the actual true basketball season, is because that's too much interaction to have those people also into the building, that you're taking a risk that you could spread COVID in the building.
Right.
And we've done really well.
Yeah.
With our numbers where we are, we have not had a spread in the school district, which is huge. So that's what we want to continue.
So for the type of basketball exercise, conditioning that's going to take place, that's going to be offered to the students of the Hatfield School District, meaning whether they are a school of choice student or not, they're going to be able to participate?
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking that question out loud in case residents or parents have that question, because we just talked about schools fully remote right now because of sending, not because of the kids coming here, but because of the communities they reside in, may have a high level of cases currently. So I just wanted to ask the question so everybody knows it's for our students, regardless of where they live.
Correct.
Okay.
But in terms of this, it is limited to the 12 kids per team, and they would have had to try out for basketball this year. And the way I understand it is it will be the same thing, is that you're not going to just get to say, I want to come.
We're not going to all of a sudden have 100 kids come up and play basketball.
Exactly. It's not going to be 50 kids can say, I want to come, and then all 50 kids are going to get an opportunity.
Right. Okay. But if they do the conditioning thing, I'm
that's
assuming
a
if
difference,
it's going to be, and
it'll be different. It won't be basketball, it'll be different.
It doesn't have to be interactive at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So the school's trying their best to do what they can to make sure that there's some type of interaction for kids to have an out. And it's very difficult to do.
And really to stay in shape so that they can ultimately be competitive again when all of this is allowed, because as you said, there are other local schools that are having their seasons, and then our students are missing out on that.
Well, in
If they're
winter-
also missing out on the conditioning and the,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was going to say, now that winter's here, or will be Wednesday night into Thursday, it cuts down on being able to go
Yeah.
outside
Right.
for the kids and ride bikes and do all that type of thing, because the weather's changing and it's winter. And I just wanted to make one more comment on something Diana said earlier about sports. Sports, the arts, music, they are all part of children's
drama production.
children's education. Everything is.
Yes.
All of that. So we oftentimes, maybe as adults or parents whose kids have gone through already and are older now, but as we look back, those were some of the things that those are some of the things that were offered that allowed children to come and to thrive, It's not just about the education, it's not just about the academic part of true education is access to all those other things. So anything the school district can do is important. And probably I'm not being heard because
I don't know.
the computer over
Hold on
here is
1 second.
echoing.
I have logged in on my phone so that people.
Are we good?
Well, we're going to start
that's
streaming
right.
live
You're
on a
getting the
go-forward
double
basis.
feed.
We're not doing this anymore.
We had lost power.
That's okay.
That outlet.
Yeah,
We're back on now.
that's okay. I'm not blaming anybody. The process is just whatever. So-
Yeah, it is a little.
So all I
it's-
was saying, and I don't want to repeat myself, basically I was just simply saying there's more than academics that are part of a well-rounded education for students. And that's sports, the arts, drama,
Yes.
music, all of those things.
I'm
So-
glad you mentioned the extracurriculars other than sports, because there's been a lot of talk about sports, but kids, they lost the drama production last year. Likely they're going to lose the drama production this year. That's a really important
Absolutely.
thing at Smith Academy. The band, there's no band right now. I mean, and that's such an important, I mean, I can tell you as the parent of a Smith Academy student that those are really important, really important to them. So.
But on the flip side, they started vaccines, so maybe in, 4 or 5 months, we might be there, right?
Right, and that was going to be my next thing, is that today started the process of vaccines. The general public won't be seeing those offered to them probably until at least April. But the goal is that we're going to get our medicals, personnel, and first responders, et cetera. That's the first phase, and then second phases goes into teachers and so on. I mean, there's a long process of it all. But yes, so with the vaccine coming out, or that it is out, that's a process that's starting, and it's a long time coming, obviously. So hopefully, with that happening, we're going to start to see numbers go down, and we might be able to get back to some type of new normal.
That would be great.
Because it's clearly
this
not going
all
to be
comes
the
down to
normal that we've all
confidence.
expected before.
Right, it all comes down to confidence, and it would be great to have, if teachers are in that second phase, so that they feel confident to come back into the building and get going.
So
That would be great. So that's a good update.
Yeah, thank
got
you,
nothing
Carrie.
else.
Thank you. That's great. I
It stays
appreciate
that
it.
way.
Oh, let's hope so. Let's hope so. And also, good job just communicating everything to the town. It's really, people really, I think, wait for those calls, and, I think that there's a lot of good information there. It's important for people to get that. So Carrie, thank you very much. We have one appointment to make tonight. This is a request to appoint Heather Cahill as the school committee representative to Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
So moved?
So moved. Second.
So there's a motion made and second. Any further discussion?
I guess I would just say it's for 1 year,
Yep.
for a 1-year term.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I had for discussion, though.
Yep. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Heather, for stepping up to do that. I'm on that committee too, so we'll be working together. I look forward to that. Then we have our annual license renewals. Do we just read through these, Marlene, or do we just approve them as?
We approve them, generally the board approves them as presented on that spreadsheet.
Okay.
And again, these are just renewals, relicensing. There
Yeah.
isn't anybody that's new.
I guess I just have and this is from whom? The Board of Health?
The Board of Health.
Well,
No,
what
these are all
licensees-
the licenses that the Board of Selectmen renew.
Right,
And
but-
generally, every year, or even throughout, other times throughout the year, we'll follow up with the treasurer's office to see if there's
Okay.
anybody that has outstanding.
Well, so one of the businesses on this list has an outstanding,
Correct. So in the past, the Board of Selectmen, excuse me?
no, yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
It's a Class 2?
Yeah, it just says payment outstanding. So if you have a payment agreement and they're keeping that, then I would recommend
should
to
know
the
that.
board, yes, you should.
Yes, that payment is now, it's actually even paid, that one. I
Okay,
didn't realize I never knew the name of that business. That person is all paid now.
okay, so,
So this one that says payment outstanding is
Board of Health
paid.
information.
Exactly, so it's not Board of Health, that is me.
That's what I thought, that's why I asked you the
I
question.
didn't know the name of the business.
that was the name of the, okay.
Okay, you're fine, you're off the hook.
So very
Okay.
good. Everybody else, with a problem.
That list got, it
So
was paid
everything
late,
is in
but it's
order
paid
with
now.
all of these,
Yes,
and we're good to go. And I just want to just reiterate that the restaurant and bar licenses are having their fees waived this year.
that's right.
Yep.
And so
I'll
I'm,
make a motion to approve the 2021 relicensing businesses as presented.
Second.
motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No, ma'am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And a big thank you, because Key is the one who prepares these, is that correct?
Key
I
does.
Yes.
used to do this,
Thank
it's a
you,
big
Key.
job.
She handles
So a big thank you to
process,
Key
yeah.
for taking care of that. And we'll make sure we get all those signed before we
Yes,
leave
they're
here.
in the signature folder.
Virtual community outreach meeting request. Oh, this is from Bernie Shimorowski?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Simorowski has made a request. The meeting agenda was amended this afternoon. And as we know, River Valley Growers has a application pending with the Cannabis Control Commission. And we've already approved, the board has already approved a host community agreement. Also, part of the applicant's steps in the process is to do an outreach, a community outreach meeting. And the Cannabis Control Commission issued an administrative order that allows those applicants to hold that outreach meeting via the web, a virtual meeting. One of the requirements of that administrative order is that the chief elected officer or authorized agent for the host agreement must approve this request for the virtual.
Right, so I talked to Bernie this week, and we have to approve it so that they can then have the meeting.
So they submitted a
and move
letter,
forward.
drafted the letter already that the board could sign if the board wishes to approve this request.
Okay, I mean, this is just straightforward part of the
Standard,
licensing
that is.
process. I certainly have no questions about it. Do you?
I do not. No.
So I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the virtual community outreach meeting request
For
As-
River Valley.
for River Valley Growers as presented.
Yeah, and this came up this afternoon. We tried to get, I contacted Diana, and then
Sure.
we tried to get an email out to the board to
Yep.
let you know that.
Yep,
I'll second that.
we received it.
Okay.
So a motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead and sign this. Okay, financial update.
Well, we are still waiting on the tax. The tax recap has been reviewed by the Division of Local Services. I think I had mentioned at our last meeting, we were still working on it. Last week, we had submitted it, and there were some questions from DOR, so we had to submit some additional supporting documentation. They also have expressed to us that they are swamped, with communities submitting their tax recap. So actually, we had a conversation this morning, a telephone conversation with our DOR rep, David Guzman. And as of this morning, we're all set. We've answered their questions, provided the documentation that they asked for, and we're just waiting for approval.
Shoes on the other foot this year, huh?
We're waiting on them instead of they're waiting on us.
So we are
Only
hopeful
kidding,
that
Mary
we
Jane.
will have a tax rate before the week is over. In the meantime, our accountant, She will very soon have the receivable receipts reconciled through November, and then she's going to be starting on the cash receipts, reconciling the cash receipts very soon. And the treasurer's office actually is reconciled through, so Lori's in the process of reconciling the receivable receipts based on the information I received from her this morning with you, but your office is reconciled.
So we're ready for her when she comes to us. So we're caught up with all of October. We're working on November, so we're right on track. We just need her to do her part. We've never had an accountant do this, so I don't actually know what the process looks like. So I'm a little nervous because we'll see, but we're ready for her when she gets to us so that we can, start doing it monthly, going forward, because we're ready, so.
Nice job.
And Lori was planning to be here Thursday with the anticipated snowstorm. She's monitoring.
Well, we do have the best plowed streets in Western Massachusetts. I'm hoping that continues.
That's actually true.
I know it is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but it's the street she has to take before she
Yeah, I
gets
get
to
it.
Hatfield.
No,
That's the
yeah.
problem.
No, we understand, but that's good. Sharon, thank you and your office and
Yes,
everybody,
thank
Marlene,
you.
everybody that's involved with that. It's nice to,
Hopefully we'll be sending you a "we're done" email tomorrow.
yeah.
And then everyone gets bills for Christmas, I'm sorry.
All of the financial updates have been positive and
Absolutely.
encouraging, and that's a really great
We
thing.
look forward to hearing them.
And we have this, is this CARES Act final
Yes,
reporting?
the board had requested a list of expenses.
Okay.
And
Any money left?
So
Is there, didn't we have 289?
it's well, the town, the allocation of funds was 289,543, I believe. This is what we anticipated, we anticipate in either has been already charged, paid, and we expect to be incurring these costs. Now, I also have to add to this list, and it just changed last week. There were a couple items that came off because the school had returned some items, and then we added some school building maintenance expenses that had not been on this list. And this webcam, actually, we're going to, put that through. It does qualify. It's an eligible expense, but we will put it through. Now, several weeks back when I reported to the state what our expenses were, we're still incurring expenses, before. We have until December 30th. So like I said, we have had to take some items off, and so we will replace, with other items. But at this point, as of this report that I printed out on Friday, it was $254,000 that we anticipate to expend by December 30th. But
The town as a whole, but by the school
you
department
can see the
in
departments are
particular.
listed there.
Which again is fine.
Yeah,
Just
it
so
is
people-
overwhelmingly
just so
for the
people
school
understand.
department. Right.
What payroll does that have through?
When I had to do the reporting for the state, I estimated payroll right through December 30th.
So I don't know if this is the right time, I wasn't sure when to say it, that I need you guys to think about that the position of COVID isn't gonna go away in this payroll.
right.
We have one more payroll in this month, so we have to look at your next meeting, how you're gonna fund, I'm assuming keeping that position, because I won't have that line item to use anymore.
Right.
So just wanted to get that on your
Understood.
radar.
And maybe something will come out of
Right.
another CARES Act.
There's another federal stimulus bill pending. I did talk to the representative at the state level that is, overseeing this spending, and had asked him, and, they certainly don't have any idea right now, but they do recognize that this situation is going to continue, and that they're waiting to see if there will be federal money for municipalities. That's what they're watching for.
From what I've heard, a real sort of push in the next stimulus package would be for municipalities. So
Yeah.
So you
fingers
could-
crossed that something can get done.
True, but you can do a short-term, long-term plan as we can set it up to use the money for somewhere else like we did with CARES, kind of saying the money's coming, but we're gonna put it in this bucket for now so that we can not lose that, position and that resource that we need.
lose the
So we have to come up with a placeholder of a place to put it until then.
Well, we also have to keep in mind, excuse me, we also have to keep in mind that it's not just a position, there's going to be other expenses related to COVID.
Right.
So, you know,
They continue.
equipment and materials and whatever, so yes,
Yeah.
we'll have to create an account of, I don't want to say fictitious, but I guess that's the right word, fictitious account, and it will be, as of January 1st, moving forward, that will be what we charge everything that's COVID-related to, so that when the money does hopefully come in, or if it doesn't, we know exactly what the costs incurred were, so if we have to go to town meeting or
So
something.
I would recommend that maybe the finance committee get involved and put some money in a line item, so we're not negative spending, because we're not supposed to do that.
Board of
And we're
Selectmen have
actually-
had a conversation with the
Exactly, but
finance committee.
it's more pressing now, because I have a payroll coming in a
Right.
couple weeks, that, you move it, and then if you can, replace it later, you can
Do
do
we need
that.
to
But
do that before the end of the year?
not before the end of the year, but it needs to be right on the agenda when we get back, so I wanted to make
Scheduled
sure.
to Come back the first week.
So, just so that it got on your plate.
Is
I
it
didn't
even
want you to
January 2nd?
Forget.
Or, no,
January
January
5th.
5th.
January
So-
5th.
Okay.
And I think we should do that, certainly with the finance committee, but I'm also under the impression that for COVID-related expenses, there is permission to deficit spend. Is that
That's correct.
so?
We just would need to notify DOR.
Yeah, well, let's notify them.
We can't be the only ones. Yeah.
Sure we're not, whichever
Well,
way
we
you
did
prefer.
do that months ago.
Right.
But I will follow up again to see if we need to
Get
do
a
it
chance, it might be
again.
worth it to say, listen,
Yeah.
and like Diana said, we're not the only ones. I mean, the year ends in 2 weeks, right? So,
Exactly. So, as long as you've got it on your radar, thank you.
thank you. Thanks for the update, Sharon.
Do we need to vote this wage request thing, or is this just a
No, you just need
signature?
to sign it.
So that looks like it takes care of all of our agenda items for tonight. Do you have anything else, Marlene?
I don't. That is it.
Well, before I make a motion to adjourn, I just want to say Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion and also second Ed's sentiment with Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody.
Yes, and a thank you to my colleagues for all the good work this year. It was great.
And people,
So
please
motion's been made and
stay
seconded. Any
safe
further
and
discussion?
healthy.
Thank you to John. We didn't say, John, we thanked a lot of people tonight, but not John, the one who makes this all possible.
That's right. he does.
And John, we thank you for that.
Yes,
And all
absolutely.
the other things, that you're always right there for broadcasting the 350th things, everything. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
We have a
you.
lot of.